Hi, Silly Moustache here. Welcome to another Sunday morning prattle. I've had my script for this week written for me by Zachary Carpenter. So thank you so much for your question, Zachary. And he's given me a number that I'm going to work through. The first one is he asked me to talk about breaking in. And we're not talking about burglary, we're talking about breaking in guitars, alternatively called opening up. And this is a magic rather than a science. When you first get a new guitar, it is often what we call tight. I'll cut to the chase here. I went to a presentation about Martin guitars with Chris Martin in the early 80s, and he used a phrase that stayed with me. He said, when you buy a brand new guitar, that's the worst it's going to sound ever. It will only ever improve. And for good guitars, that is universally true. There is no science to it, there's no time. How long does it take to open up? There's a number of different factors. And one, of course, is the amount it's played. I used to have a luthier friend who would finish a guitar but not tell the client until he contacted me and asked me to play it for 3 or 4 weeks before he told the client that it was ready, because he was convinced that I would open it up. I don't know whether that was a compliment or whatever. Maybe he thought I was a ham-fisted, heavy-handed guy that would bang some noise into it, or whether it just I helped mature it. I have a theory, and that's all it is, that Adirondack spruce takes longer to open up than Sitka spruce. Those are the only two in my real experience. And that's been put in doubt because of a recent purchase of an Eastman guitar which had an Adirondack top, which was bright and full as soon as I opened the case the first time. Other guitars, like this one for instance, this is my Santa Cruz RS, which means Roy Smeck deep bodied jumbo. Built in 2012, I bought it used, hardly, in 2014, and it felt to me tight and restricted for a long time. It's got an Adirondack top, we believe, but it is now full. It has that slight accent around the bass to middle, clean sound, so it's working, but it took a bit of time to get there. Methods of making things open up rather than just playing the heck out of them are things like this. I bought one of these once, a tone right, and this is an electrical vibrator. Basically, you put this gubbins on the strings as close to the bridge as possible. You plug it in, and it hums and buzzes, and it makes the guitar shake and tremble, and so that's, equates to being played. I used to put this on to guitars for about 3 weeks. There's no objective way of measuring the before and after. It's a matter of perception, really. So the best way to make a guitar sound full and resonant is to play it, and play it vigorously, I would say. So that's my answer to that, and it's not a very satisfactory one, but that's the one I've got. The second one he mentions is wearing guitars. Now, I don't know whether he means wearing them as with using guitar straps when you stand up to perform, or whether we're talking about wearing them out. Let's talk about wearing them first of all. I make my own straps because I know the length and I don't need adjustments and things like that. I like them with as little stuff on them. This is just a piece of leather which I cut to my particular size, and I use shallow strap locks, the old type, and I put the male part in the end of the heel, which causes uproar and disgust and things in the guitar playing tube. Where's it gone? and just picks that a 1/2 inch diameter hole there over the end pin. Never had a problem with the end pin, and that's it. I wear my guitar slightly higher than others, but it suits me. It minimises arm extension. On the left, got a mashed up shoulder, and it puts my right hand on the sweet spot. So there, that's how I wear my guitars. How do I wear them out? Right, okay, right. Let's have a talk about this. What is likely to wear on a guitar? First of all, the most obvious thing are the frets. You're pressing lumps of metal onto lumps of metal all the time, over and over and over and over and over again. They get dents in them, and after a while they get buzzy, and you have to have them pulled out, or you can have them dressed, and so you get lower frets, which can be good for some, not so good for others. I like high frets. Or you can have them refretted. I had a Martin guitar for over 20 years. I played it in bluegrass bands, never thought about the frets at all. And this guitar, when I got it, this is my Collings DS1, D for Dreadnought, S for Standard, 12th fret, 1 for Mahogany back and sides, Sitka top. And when I got it, I realised what a bright sounding, loud, brutally loud guitar it was, so this became my bluegrass guitar. I had not yet learnt the art of pressing as gently as possible with the left hand and putting all the power with the right, and this 2008 guitar has already been refretted once. So there you go. The other things that can be worn, fretboards, if you have long nails and you dig into them, or you press strings into the fretboard, which is kind of bad practice, are the nuts and the saddles. They're made of bone. Bone is hard, but it's softer than steel and metal. So yeah, they will wear in time. The other thing to consider is the bridge plate. I had a terrible situation with an old Martin 12-string once in concert, where all of a sudden the barrel of one of the strings broke through the spruce bridge plate underneath and went completely out of tune and became untunable, and so the bridge plate had to be replaced. Tuners do get tired. I've got some tuners that are, well, it's on a 1934 guitar and they're the original tuners. They've got a bit of play in them, so you can only tune up, you can't tune down, which you should never do anyway. Yeah, they do wear out. Tuners, I think, generally speaking, are better quality than they used to be in the good old days. Apart from that, I suppose you could wear the tops by hitting the top with a strap. I don't think this should be called a pick guard. If you're going to hit the top of the body with a pick, there's something radically wrong with your technique. Yeah. But what you do, or what I do, and I notice this when I clean my guitars, is I find little marks on them, which is my fingers touching it. Yeah. So in the olden days in the UK, we used to call these scratch plates. I think that's a better description for them than pick guard. But there we go. So you could do that. Any sort of bad treatment of a guitar is going to cause marks here. Also, your upper arm can get a little bit moist, and that can leave a little bit of clouding is what I call it, and that's more noticeable on this guitar than any of the others here, I think. So there we go. I'm going to leave wear there now, and I'm going to go change of sound. He says, you asked me to talk about change of sound. Well, here's the sound of an old Englishman sipping tea, or slurping, as someone said recently. Change of sound. Well, of course, different strings, different picks, a different style will change things. I know somebody that can get a beautiful sound out of any guitar, and I know somebody that make the finest guitar sound awful. The effects of relative humidity and temperature can both have effects on the sound of a guitar. If it's too humid, the top gets damp and it rises a little. If it gets dry, it sinks a little, and so it'll all have an effect. And of course that effect of opening up, as we talked about. There is another item that I would like to say. Perception. There have been times when I have taken a guitar and picked it up and played it and thought, what's wrong with this guitar? And it's not the guitar, it's my ears. I have tinnitus. I'm an old man, so my hearing isn't perfect, and I've had all this cancer treatment which has messed up everything in my head, and so there are times when I hear better than other times. We can just tell that by the volume on the sound on the zapper of the television, and so maybe your ears might be the problem rather than the guitar. And I'm thinking of I found something on YouTube where someone did some exercises on their ears, which actually seemed to help. It was supposed to be about tinnitus, but actually helped just clear out those tubes and things and make your hearing a little bit more clear. So it could be perception. The last thing was he says the ding heartache. In 1999 I bought my first Collins guitar, which was like this, only a rosewood version, DS2H, D dreadnought, S standard, 2 rosewood in that case, and H because it had a herringbone trim. And shortly after I bought it, I paid twice as much for that guitar as I'd ever paid before, and I did a pub gig, a pokey little pub gig, for a very modest fee, and at the end of the evening I put it on a stand without detaching the jack plug. Yes, I had a pickup in it, oh dear. And as I walked to the bar I heard a crash and I saw it laying face down, half on a podium, with the headstock, or what remained of the headstock, on the floor. It was firewood, and my perfect guitar, perfect, wonderful, extremely expensive guitar, shattered. I got it fixed, and I played it for 20 odd years until I sold it in 2018, and I'm still not quite sure why. But it had scars. You can see the scars. Now the advantage was I took it to bluegrass camps. We don't sing around campfires in the UK, but I took it to jams and things like that, and it got more and more dented and dinged and things like that. And I didn't need to worry about it because the first cut is the deepest. I'm doing some descriptions of all these guitars which will need to be disposed at some point, and so I've been doing a very, very close inspection of all the little marks and things which have to be declared if you're selling honestly. And these stands do, if you're not careful, leave little marks around here, tiny little marks that you don't notice until you're polishing it and staring at it from 2 inches away. This is an example of some dings which hurt a little bit. I had this in this very room teaching a very large gentleman, very tall gentleman, who had a very, very large, very, very heavy Japanese made jumbo. Now I always have these stands around so people can put their guitars on it and not lean them up against sofas and things. And so he very carefully avoided the stand and leant his guitar on a balance, which then fell over and hit this brand new guitar, leaving a considerable dent of just over 1/4 of an inch here and about 2 millimeters deep, and another here about 3/4 of an inch, a little less deep. And in pushing this over onto the ground, I guess the stand made some dents along here. So no longer perfect after about a month, worst time, and it's got these little stand dents here. It depends on the finish. A hard finish like the Collins will resist that a little bit more. The Santa Cruz and this one with very, very light finishes, bit less. So that's about it. I think I've prattled on for long enough. So thank you again to Zachary Carpenter for giving me the ideas for this. And if you have any questions for me, if you'd like me to prattle on about something, then please let me know, because as you see, I do respond. So if you have been, thanks for watching and have a nice Sunday. Bye.